These sessions are intended for you guys to ask your questions. So on how to, they can be, of course, to do with your CRM system and how to go about doing various actions. I could have to do with any of the leads in your system as well as your websites as well. So just so you are aware. Now you can use the Q&A, you can use the chat. If you feel like your questions are better asked verbally, by all means, you can raise your hand. I'll give you the ability to speak in here. But again, I really do hope that you are asking these questions because again, the questions that you are asking will benefit, most definitely benefit others. Now, these recordings are always available as well. So if there is anything that is reviewed that you need to refer back to, you can go on to our Vimeo. I am actually going to post that for you guys here in the chat because, again, we do host a lot of webinars at AgentLocator. And we can't make all of them all the time, right? So I'm just going to post it in here. This is just the dashboard of our Vimeo account where you're going to see a lot of either the past webinars that we've had. Some of them could be updates that we run, that we put the videos on, obviously on Vimeo as well. They're in your system, and there is different collections. So when you go to that, the Vimeo there is like showcases, collections, things like that you can kind of go through to find certain webinars that fall, like if you're looking for the Dale Architect ones, like there's a specific category where his all fall into and things like that. So hopefully you do find that useful. Now, as we get started, I do kind of roll things, waiting for you guys to pop in your questions. I know that there's bound to be some that do come off. And so with that, I know that I did get a question in this morning that just from one of you that are in here, Brian. So you wanted to know, again, for the holidays, being able to send out a mass email, Merry Christmas or Happy New Year, and things like that. So how to go about doing that. So we can definitely run through that quickly, just with respect to sending a mass or creating an email template and then sending it the mass action as well. Now, first thing, generally, what most will do is essentially create an email template. Now, you don't have to create a template in order to mass action. It's just if you want to make sure that you've got the correct short codes in there, things like that, then I find it's always the safest route to go. And you may want to utilize that email again, maybe swapping out info, pictures, things like that, or what they're saying. So when we want to create our emails, we're simply going over here into our email section. And then you're going to go to the email template on the menu there. This is where all your email templates are stored. You'll have several already in here. A lot of these templates are part of existing campaigns that you do have in your system. Some of them are not. They were on previous campaigns, things like that. You can, of course, access any of these templates, make edits to them. You can search for different templates based on name. And, of course, you have the various categories. Some that are already existing, some that you do have the ability to create categories for those email templates as well. So when we want to create a new one, we're simply going creating new. We're going to select a category to put it into. I'm just going to select on categorize for this. The title of those emails are for your reference only. So if you're searching for it when you go to send a mass email, for example, you can easily locate that. And then, of course, the subject here is the subject of the email. Now, as you build the body of your email, of course, you have, the body where we can add some formatting. You can insert images in here. You can hyperlink and so on. You can also build tables and so on and so forth. Now, on the right-hand side is your short code list, and it is simple as dragging and dropping. So if we wanted to add that in there, we're just going drag and drop. It's going to automatically, in this case, these are all your leads data short codes. So naturally, these are going to replace it with the leads information. So the leads first name, their last name, email, etc. Now, we can, of course, write whatever we want in here. Many cases, if we're sending out a holiday, there is, not always, but often we like to throw a little picture in there. So you do have and browse your computer for images. Now, Some of you may be looking for images that you can use for different holidays. There are websites for that have them. When we're sending out mass actions, we're not displaying it, so it's a little bit different. But definitely for displaying images on your website, they have to be approved for commercial use or they'll come after you. So you cannot just go on Google and take a picture, just so you guys are aware. But there is sites such as like Pixabay, for example. So Pixabay, you can download different images. So there's images, illustration, vectors, video, music, like a lot of different things that you could use. So for example, if I wanted to search through GIFs, and for example, I just type in Christmas, that's a common thing. These would be essentially any GIFs that are out there that are available for you to download that are free to use, okay? So if I want a GIF is a moving picture, so maybe we wanted to add this in there. Again, I'm just going to download this. You can choose the size, how big you want that GIF. Let's say I want it to be this big. I'm going to go download. You don't have to donate. It's a free site to use. You can if you want to. And then I'm just going to save this on my desktop. Now, when we go to add an image in here, we're simply clicking on the one with the folder, right? So we're clicking on that one there. And then if I go into, it might be on my downloads because I just did it. No, it's going to be on my desktop. So now I'm going to look for that snowman and I'm going to open that. And it's going to incorporate that into my email. If you recall, I picked a quite small one. So that's why it is relatively small in here. Now, you do have the ability to change the size of your images. So when you click on it, for example, you're going to see that this icon now highlights. That's going to give us the ability to, adjust the dimensions of it there. I can make this bigger. I can make it 100%. It should grow. In a perfect world, it's going to grow to be 100% of the width. But because the image resolution isn't going to be there because the original download that I had wasn't a large image, right? So if we end up throwing an image in here that's too big, let's say, but you want it to take up the majority of the page, then again, just make it 100%. It's going to shrink that image to fit within the parameters of that email. Now, again, these can also be hyperlinked. So if you have an image that you want clickable, so somebody clicks it, it takes them somewhere. Same as with text, you can just highlight the text. You do have that ability to hyperlink and throw them to an alternate URL so if you want to take them elsewhere. As we scroll down on the right-hand side here with respect to your shortcodes, you of course have various shortcodes. We went over the lead data one. Typically when we end an email, we have our agent data. In this case, it's typically the sender data, so who's sending the email. And then we would want to include the signature. So we want to make sure signature or e-signature is at the bottom of those emails. But then again, so in many cases, in most cases, you are the sender, or if you're sending a mass, it's usually on tip. Typically, it can be from whoever's sending it or whoever the lead belongs to if you are a team. But this is all relevant to their information. If you're building out emails, you can indicate, if there's a team of people and several people have access, you can indicate the information of the main agent, the listing agent, the mortgage agent, for example. Other shortcodes include, the good morning, afternoon. So if you wanted it to, you basically have this one at the top. So if I was to type, good, for example, and then a space, it's going to add an extra space, and then I wanted to drag this over here, what would happen is it would say good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on the time of day that this email goes out to the lead. So that's what that one there is for. And then often a lot of you will include activity shortcodes. Again, this obviously if we're doing the holiday stuff, it may not be included there, but just for additional reference, the activity is based on the lead's activity with respect to their viewing of properties, right? So we can create emails, for example, that sound as if we've, custom created or, created that email on the fly just to send to them based on their home search and what they've been looking at or viewing. But reality is it's just the system pulling that data based on their viewing activity, right? So it could be good morning, Crystal. Notice that you've been checking out, all property types, which could like townhomes and detached and Toronto, most food city, for example, right? So it allows you to be creative with those. So once you go ahead and you save this, I'm just going to give this, I'm going to call it snowman, and I'm going to call this one snowman as well, just so that we can easily find this email. Once we have that, we can save it. Now, you can add attachments to your emails as well. If this email, currently as it stands, if this email is part of a campaign, just as an example, attachments are not included in campaigns. There's no feature for that. So I'm just going to save that there, right? Now, Brian's asking your default signature will be there. We have to add. It's going to, so if you add that short code, so in here, if we add that short code, we have to add it, especially if we're sending out a mass action. And that's going to be the signature that you have in your email signature. It's going to be your main email signature, right? So when we have that, that's essentially what it's going to be if you're editing that one. Some of you may have additional email signature. These are based off of different campaigns or sources. So sometimes when somebody's from a different source, let's say we have 5 different websites, those are typically 5 different sources. So we may have different signatures based on those different websites. So, but majority of cases, most commonly used is the main email signature for everyone around here. But now that we've created the template, that's going to give us the ability to essentially mass action that out. So when we're listed with your database in here, and it really depends on how big your database is, right? So every month you guys do have the ability to send out 10,000 mass emails, okay? It could be, 3 emails to 3,000 people, 3 times a month kind of thing, or maybe you just have 10,000 leads and it's 1 email. So one of the rules that I kind of, encourage that you do, because when we're sending out a mass, and if it's something that you do more regularly, is to filter out the people that you're not going to be able to hit anyway, meaning they've opted out or they've got an invalid email address. Because when the system is calculating, so right now I have 323 leads. So if I was to send a mass text to all of them, or email rather, the system is calculating based and giving me my number out of 10,000 based off of 323. Now, 100 of these people may actually have bad email addresses. So at calculation, obviously they are not part of your 10,000 limit, but when the system is calculating, if we've selected them at that very moment, it's going to consider them as someone you're sending that email to. I'm not sure if that makes sense to you. So what we definitely want to do is just filter those people out. So what we can do, of course, sometimes we're not sending a mass email to everyone. We may be using filters for different audiences. But whatever you are filtering out I'm encouraged to use the email validity, right? Meaning that we want to send or try to send to people where we don't know if their email is valid or we do know that it is valid. So if we go in and we kind of check this and apply, we're going to go from 323 people to 153 people that I can actually send this email to. Now, when I go and I want to select individuals, obviously we can select individuals as such, kind of going through and selecting randomly. We can select the whole page and we can view more than 10 at a time. So, depending on what you're doing, you can view more than 10. Or we can select all of the leads if we wanted to in here. Now to send a mass, I'm just going to take these off just so that let me just go like this. So I'm just going to select one to showcase the mass. We're going to hit the apply actions, and then we're going to hit the send mass email on here. This is, again, we can give it a title. So if we wanted to see the report, we know exactly what this is. It's not a requirement. It's good just for reference what this mass email was about. So I'm just going to write snowman in there. And then we're going to select that email template that we created. So if I'm sending it to one person right now, it's obviously showing my email signature. Sometimes you'll open this up and your email signature is not going to show there. And that's the importance of including that short code for your email signature. Okay. Now, when we select the template, I can just start typing snowman and my template is going to pop up. All right, so we can see that this is right here. Now, one great thing that we do have is the ability to send a test email. So we can always send a test email to ourselves. So if you're sending this to a massive database, we sometimes want to make sure that it's going to be received exactly how we want it to be received, meaning the display is properly, everything's proportioned. So we can always send a test email. So you can send that, it'll just send it to your email so that you can view it. And I'll show you what that looks like in just 1 minute here. Let's wait for it to come through. Going to take its sweet time. But then once we do send it, then the test email is going to be no different than any other email that you're sending. It's just you're able to see it. I'm going to see if maybe it went into my spam. It shouldn't have, but you never know. All right, now it came in. So we have the snowman test. So when I click on that, you're able to see, so I'm able to see how the email would actually be received on the other end, right? And so again, sometimes we want to cross-reference different mobile, like, cell phones, tablets, things like that, making sure everything's proportioned. But once we do have that, we would be sending this mass email. So we would just hit send. It would send to everyone that you selected. Now, this one here, when you're choosing this, so this one here, so when we're sending a mass email, just as, and this would be more from a team level, okay? Typically, it's going to show the account it's coming from. So because I selected this email, I'm doing it all, it's coming from me. Now, if we are a team, so maybe you have an administrator that, manages like blasting, databases, different things and stuff like that. Instead of it coming from her account or maybe the main account email, they also have the ability to select the main agent, meaning that if you have 5 different agents in your system, the email would actually look as if it's coming from that person. So you're sending a mass blast on behalf of your team, which then each email going to each lead will be addressed as it's coming from the person that's been working and dealing with that lead. So that's what the difference of this is, and it's only really applicable if we do on a team kind of team scope. So that is your mass actions. Now, I hope that, or with your mass email, I hope, Brian, that answers your questions on how to do that. I gives you a better run through. I know I did send you some tutorials earlier, but hopefully that helps you out, and anyone else in here that may be wanting to do that over the next little while here. Now, again, for those of you that have jumped in here, this is our open Q&A session. So they're intended for you guys to be asking questions. It could be CRM related, it could be lead related, it could be website related, things like that. So anything in here, if you can use the chat, the Q&A section, if you feel like your question is better asked verbally, by all means, ask that question in here. Or raise your hand rather, and I'll give you that ability to talk. Now, with the fact that your AgentLocator CRM system is and does have that capability of sending out listings and helping you track a lot of boards and feeds like that in the system, Strata systems in the back, don't necessarily give you that insight. And in many cases, you're having to restart those searches every so many days, every 90 days, 120 days, things like that. So it is it is beneficial for you to be using the system, just because you can set, you forget, and you know that somebody is receiving listing emails from you continuously, but you're also able to see what they're doing. Now, you also have that ability to add leads in here. So you're not limited to just website leads that have come in through your website. You can, of course, sit here and if you're, maybe you get a lead that you work in the floor, you have floor duty, and you've got somebody and you want to throw them in here, you can definitely add leads into your system. Once you add a lead into your system, you do have the ability to set them up to receive listings. So I'm just going to find somebody that's not currently receiving listings. I can tell based on the searches. So let's just pretend it's this person right here. So when we click on the lead down here, so this one already has a saved search, so that's not a good example, because you're going to have to set them up to start receiving those to start receiving those listings. Let me just use a filter. Receiving listings, doesn't receive listings. All right, so there's a couple. We already did that one. This one here. So let's pretend it's this one. Hopefully I haven't done it. This one I've also done it. We will find somebody that has not had it done. Because I just want to show you. So this one right here, okay? So this, when you set up a lead in here that doesn't have an account on your site, so whether it's your lead gen site or a branded site, it's going to show here. Now you can give them, so right here in the drop down, if you only have one automated site with us, you're only going to see one URL here for your lead gen site. If you have a branded site and a lead gen site or multiple sites, you're going to see them all listed here. So you can choose which website they're actually receiving the listings through. Okay. Now, if you can send them an activation email if you wish to. If they're aware that you're setting them account up 100%, send them the activation email. It is simply just an email that is for them to, you know, acknowledges that they now have an account on the site. They can validate their email address and so on. And why I say if they know that you're going to be setting them up or setting them listings, that's great, because if somebody isn't aware that you're doing this and they get this random email, that might catch them off guard. That's all. So you don't have to, but you would simply just add the new lead gen user. You would go, yes, this now creates an account for this person on your website. And then you can, of course, go ahead and start building out the search for them. When you give them the filter name, the name here, just so you are aware, does go out on those listing emails. Okay, so just be mindful of that. So whatever it says there. And then, of course, you just build your search out. You can adjust your scheduler and so on. Now, kind of looping back into the filter name, the listing emails that do go out, you do have not only, of course, with the filter name adjusting what it says, so it's part of that subject on the email. You do also have the ability to modify that subject. So if you want to create it catchy, you can. And I'm just going to quickly jump over to show you where you would do that. So as you go over into the email section, this is where you can edit the listings email. Okay, so you can edit a company template, so the company, all the emails, if you're a team lead or what have you, everyone has the same kind of update to their listings. You can also create your own. So if you want yours to stand apart from everyone's, you can. For this case, I'll just edit the company just to show you. So in here, you have that ability to modify the email subject. Okay. You have the list of short codes here. So if you click it, you have the list of short codes. If you wanted to, like, you know, Crystal, new list, or whatever you say, and then in the subject. But this right here, this short code is what's pulling that filter name for that search. That's right. So be mindful of what it says, because this is what's pulling that information right here. So you can get creative if you feel like, you know what, I'm going to try to modify this to be a little bit more catchy, encourage the open rates on these emails. By all means, you have that ability to do so. And of course, you can customize those listing emails. So the top banner, you can have some branding in there if you want to. You can also do the same with the footer. There is a video on the homepage there kind of walking you through and what the dimensions need to be. If you're not sure and you don't really want to go through that trouble and mess things up, again, you have to save things first and foremost. And of course, you can always preview, but you can send it to support. So if you do have a nice email banner that you want to go out on all your listings, the top of the listings, nice footer, maybe an email signature you want at the bottom, you do have that ability to have it in there. Support can definitely assist you with that if you need it. Now, and just another question here. But yeah, so adding people in here, you can also, of course, if you do have a list of individuals, you can import a database as well. So if there's more than one that you need to bring in, you can definitely do that. So Shabana is asking, what can we do to be up to date and start fresh in the new year rather than playing catch up? Any advice on staying consistent? consistent, and do we have a campaign to use for tasks to re-engage instead of up in a, okay. So with respect to be up to date and start fresh in the new year rather than playing catch up, really depends on where your system is at currently, okay? And what I mean is everyone's system that's in here is going to be different in have we been consistent all along with what we're doing, right? So really, and then you guys have your filters. This is also where and why we push these filters so much, because it helps decrease the likeliness of you stepping in and being overwhelmed with everything. Naturally, if we're taking time off for the holidays, there's going to be some things that accumulate, but it shouldn't ever be at a point where you're just completely overwhelmed with what's in your system. What I would suggest doing is, if you do have a magnitude of leads in here and you haven't really been consistent, and again, some of you guys have these filters that look like this. Some of you guys probably have like the need to make contact, try to make those ones. They're for the most part the same or very similar, okay? Now, your first priority here, these are all the people that we haven't tried calling. So if we're going to go through our filters, one of the things that I would do is, and we want to kind of make the most of our time, is figure out how much time a day we're going to spend at this and focus on the people first and foremost that have been active, okay? So the activity naturally is going to decrease over the holidays, but if we go here, we have that ability to sort this based on last activities. So this list here, regardless of when any of these leads registered, they're all in here in order based on their, who is most recently active. Now, depending on how many people you have in each of your lists, that's kind of also where it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. So if we are going to go through our first priority, second priority, first priority, I would tackle again, if there was 120 people in this list, and depending on, again, on how many other things I have to do in my system, I would target maybe 15 of these people, 20 at most a day, and just get it down to 0. And then at that point, it's just maintenance. And this filter here is really just the new leads that you have not tried calling. Right, so we should be calling all of these people. So they should have a call on them anyway. Your second priority, again, this is only if you've taken a break over the holiday, this filter here is likely not changing because you haven't called anyone, because these are the people that we've now tried calling at least one time, right? So if we haven't been doing any calling, I didn't call yesterday, the day before that, this filter hasn't changed because I haven't called anyone. So in this list, and hopefully yours isn't looking like this, it does happen, of course, but we want to call as many of these people as we can, because these priority filters, and really all of your filters, should be cleared out at the end of the day, right? So, and if we stay consistent and jump into our system every single day and making sure that we're doing that, it's going to be a lot less work. It's doing it every day, but daily, the amount of work you have to do is less than if you were to just jump in here a couple times a week to kind of work on your leads and things like that. And bear in mind, your leads do, in many cases, act off of convenience, right? So if we're not convenient and working in our system and reaching out with a method, somebody may reach out to them and be more convenient, even though you may have been working this lead for a while, right? So we definitely don't want that to happen. Now, with these as well, and this is where the dialer is also beneficial, right? So the dialer, I always encourage, treat this as your office line, right? So detach yourself from the fact that, yes, this isn't my cell phone number. Nobody knows your cell phone number. We all say things in the phone. They just click a button, they call you. So if you are having that conversation, tell them, you feel free to save this number in your phone. I may reach out to you from my other line as well. So this is my business line. You know, it helps me stay on top of my database. I may from time to time text you or call you from my cell phone. Doesn't matter how you reach me. It all comes to me anyway, and I can be there for you. But try to disassociate the fact and kind of have that blockage for yourself that this isn't my phone number. This isn't my cell phone number, because the leads are going to get a hold of you either way, right? And if we get to the point where now we feel like they need to have or should have our cell phone number, then give it to them. And then just, tell them, feel free every conversation, save my number in your phone. That way, when I'm calling, it'll say, my realtor, you can make a joke about it. But then that way, it's me that's calling or trying to get a hold of you, that sort of thing. Now with the dialer as well, it helps you move quickly through here, right? So if I have 112 leads and I'm calling from my cell phone, I now have to open up my phone, go put the number in there, call the lead. Obviously I've finished that call. I'm going to now go back into my system, make my notes, and then I'm going to go to the next lead. Right, so it takes longer to action that than if we're using the dialer. So if we're using the dialer and we're dialing the lead, what I encourage, and especially for these people where we've already tried calling them, is the 23 to 25 second rule. Right, you let the timer go for that amount of time. If there's no answer, you hang up, you save the call. It's going to default on no message left, and then you click the next lead. And then you call the next lead. You let this one ring 23 to 25 seconds. If there's no answer, hang up, save, next lead. All right, so it's a lot faster because even if we're not talking to people and we're calling through our cell phones, we still have to be logging those calls. We need to track our behaviors and activities to know when we need to do them again. So if we call 3 people and those 3 people don't answer, we just completed that within 1.5 to 2 minutes at most. Right, so we're able to accomplish and take a huge bite out of these leads because a lot of them aren't answering, but it's the consistency of our calls that gets them to answer because they start to see your number popping up. They start to recognize a phone number, and most will answer just to figure out who is this that's trying to get a hold of me. Right, so that's the fastest way to get through your call list as well, is that 23 to 25 second rule. Now, of course, we do when we're coming back into here as well. January is now, kind of mid-January. People, like right after the holidays, they get back to work. The ones that were hot will start looking, a little bit more so than the ones that were warm or have intentions of moving this spring. But we definitely want to stay in touch with these individuals, right? So that's where you have your follow-up filters. Some of you have lead rating filters like this. Some of you have the 1-week check-ins. Some of you have both, right? But organization is key. And again, I'll say it, if we're organized in here, the daily work that you have to accomplish or tend to actually decreases. Because you might call a lead today, have a conversation, and realize I don't have to call this person or reach out to them for another 3 months or another 6 months. And if we're not doing that, then what we're doing is often what people will do is they'll look at their dashboard, they'll see who's active, and keep reaching out to those people. Meanwhile, a lot of those people have no intentions of moving anytime soon. So now they're going to start ghosting us because they feel like we're just like pestering them or going too hard at it, right? It's more of that sales approach that no one really cares for, right? We don't like it when people constantly try to hammer us, even though we have intention. Your leads aren't going to like it either. So if you are kind of getting in here, again, we want to follow up with, checking our hot leads, right? So our hot leads are people where we've moved that pipeline to hot and ready, or we've met them, we've signed agreements, things like that. Anyone that is in your hot and ready, these people are top of mind. You know who they are, you know they're moving sooner, you've met them and things like that. So it'd really be kind of going through those individuals, checking to see when your last communication was with them and reach out to them accordingly. Right? Just see, and having, and sometimes it's, you've had that connection. It's a reason to check in as well for all of these people. How is the holiday season for you? It's just, again, we're building those relationships. So it is an excuse to call these people, is just kind of, checking in to see how everything went with them over the holidays. That's great. Again, that sort of thing. Right? Now your warm leads in here, these warm leads can be a variety of individuals. Okay, so anyone that has this in their system, the default on this is going to be 7 days. Okay, 7 days is what it is that we should be checking in on these people. Personally, 7 days for me would be too much if I have a warm lead, because a warm lead can be somebody that is, we're working, they're working towards their pre-approval, they have intentions, they want to be moving this spring or summer, they're a warm lead, right? You could have somebody that's a warm lead that is just somebody that you really kicked it off in the conversation. It was really great. You know that they're motivated, they have plans, but those plans aren't going to commence to maybe next fall or even, the following year for legitimate reasons. So you're not going to obviously call that person every 7 days. So in those scenarios, we're not going to do it every week. That would be too much, right? So what I would encourage you all, if you have this filter, is to navigate your warm leads and determine for yourself, what is your baseline warm lead? What does that look like? And how often would I follow up with somebody that I consider to be warm? I'd say anywhere, 7 is if that's what you're classifying as a warm lead, that somebody that's kind of on the hot side, hotter side, then keep it at 7 days. Otherwise, I would change it. Personally, I would have mine at a 14 or a 21 day. So every 2 to 3 weeks, I'm just checking in to make sure things are good. How's it going? Right? So again, these people here, if you have them in these lists, that's because you have, again, changed your, and I'm just going to see if I have anyone in here. There should be. Yeah. That's because you are changing that pipeline, right? So after every conversation we're having, people, it's kind of putting them into that category. They cold, hot, warm. Now your cold leads here, they're going to be people that they're not moving anytime yet. They could have been still a decent conversation, but they didn't give you the warm and fuzzy, so they're not in your warm. But they're not moving anytime soon. You're like, maybe they're in the summer, maybe fall, maybe next year, maybe 2 years from now, whatever it might be. So these individuals, and you can adjust yours if you want phone and SMS. It's going to default to phone. But these are people that every 90 days we're going to be following up with these individuals, right? So again, when we're having a conversation, and that's where making sure we're logging, we're using it, because we might be doing something today that doesn't require our attention for another 90 days, or even in some cases, 6 months from now, right? So that's where, staying on top of that will help. Now, some of you will use check-ins as well. So if you have this baseline here, when you get into the habit, so really it's just habit, right? Of going in, doing what you have to do, making sure people are in the proper categories, and then following up and nurturing as typical and normal. Once you get caught up on these, the majority of your time spent is going to be following up and nurturing your leads. Because these filters here for 1 and 2, for example, these are just going to be people that have registered within the last 14 days, if you're in here constantly calling every day. So those are going to be like just new leads that have registered. And then most of them are going to be, and so again, some of you may have 30 leads a month. So if we're in here doing that, that's not very many calls to make if we're consistent, because most of them are going to answer by at most a 6 to 8 call attempt if we are consistently calling them and getting them on the phone. So with your lead ratings, again, our follow-up, and that's where I kind of say, have your baseline. Hots are hots, right? We're following up with them as we need. We know who they are. The warms and colds, that's where there could be a differentiating factor, because you might have a warm lead that, let's say my standard is to call every 21 days, but I have a warm lead that doesn't fall into that standard. They're kind of outside that standard, where I feel like, I have this warm lead, but I only need to call them monthly or reach out to them monthly. Or I have a warm lead that I feel like I can reach out to this person in 90 days and every quarter right now, and, give them a few months. So that's where you have like your check-ins as well. So this is where, for some, if you're not using these filters, it can get a little bit confusing. But let's say I have somebody in here that has the monthly check-in. So if I go in here and I go into the monthly check-in, there should be some people in here. So these people all have for example, a tag that says monthly check-in. They have different pipeline statuses. You've got a warm, a hot, that we've just made contact with. Now, again, we want to try to refrain from just the made contacts because they're still going to be sitting in your priority filters as well, right? So the only way to get them off of priority is to change that pipeline to either hot, cold, or warm. Now, these people are in here because we have a monthly check-in. So even though this person's a warm nurture, they're not falling into that warm nurture because I've indicated that they're also a monthly check-in. So now they have their own filters, their own kind of outside the box category. And really it's emptying your bucket, just emptying your bucket. When we do have the monthly check-in or quarterly or 6 month, you can piggyback, right? So this time for whatever I was in too. But let's say I have Crystal's on a monthly. I reach out to her in a month. I don't get her on the phone. She doesn't reply to my text message. I want to try her again because, this time I want to have a conversation, or maybe they're on a quarterly check-in. I want to have a conversation with them. That's where you can piggyback your tag. So you can have more than one tag. So if, let's say I called her in the month, I can also throw a 1 week check-in on them. So then now this person's going to constantly fall into my weekly check-in bucket until I remove that weekly check-in tag, if that makes sense. So this is stuff that we can go over, like individual accounts, breaking down these and adding. So if you were going to start to use the tag, you're going to use the filter tag does not have, and then select all your check-in tags, because then they'll fall into these ones. Instead, you could do the same for your cold leads as well, because some of your cold leads, you're like, hey, I don't need to reach out to them every quarter. Some of them, it's like a 6 month check-in, right? I'm gonna, they're really not anywhere near or have any intentions of really moving, so I'm not going to follow up with them every quarter. And everyone is just different with respect to their leads in their database. So, but that's essentially what we do, but it's all habit, right? So every time we have a phone conversation with somebody, it's how are we rating this lead first and foremost, right? So how do we rate them? Sometimes we don't have full information, so we can start the rating, as a warm, for example, and then always move it to a cold or move it to a hot. And then it's also kind of referring to our tags, wondering, what do I need to be doing in their tags? Do I need to be adding tags, moving tags, removing them, adjusting them, and so on? So most of you or all of you should have, it's going to look a little different than this, but for the most part, a very similar tag list in your system. So it's tagging them based on various aspects, right? Do we know that they own their home? Maybe they're an international buyer. Maybe they're relocating. Maybe they're retiring, upsizing, downsizing. So giving ourselves a little bit of scope on that. Understanding a little bit more about their pre-approval. Maybe they're saving for a down payment. That's why they still need that pre-approval, right? We learned that about them. We can still kind of get them in touch with a mortgage rep in some cases, just to kind of get them on track, get them excited about a purchase and what that looks like. You may have future opportunities in here. They're going to move, but it's going to be with a new job. Or maybe they just got a new job, so they need to be working for a bit in order to get into the position where they can get some financing and things like that. So it's tagging them. And then the tagging of your leads not only help, obviously you have the check-in tags that would put them in the check-in filters. It also, when we want to send out mass actions or target specific audiences for various reasons, we're able to easily pull those people up based on tags, right? For example, we want to pull up all of our investors that we've marked as investors because we just gained ourselves a great, listing that is a really good, investment opportunity, right? It has an upstairs, and then maybe has a legal suite in the basement, right? That was previously rented and generating income, right? So those different kind of ideas we're blasting people that are more likely to engage in the information you're sending them because it's relevant to them in there. So that is, again, using your filters. So again, with consistency and your question, staying consistent is creating a routine. It really comes down to habit of what we need to be doing. We tend to stay and steer off track when it's stuff that we really don't want to be doing, you know, how we always find excuses for ourselves not to do something because it's not something that we really get excited about. And leads can definitely be like that for some. Once you start having good conversations, though, that's when it starts to get a little bit more exciting. We know there is opportunity. We know that it's in here. We want to have conversations again when we're talking to these people. We're not going and trying to sell them right away. We should come from a place of gratitude. You know, thank you for selling my stuff. It really means a lot to me. And kind of going and building that relationship, talk to them about stuff that's outside of real estate, right? It could be to do with their search. Maybe they need a shop in the back, you know, like, oh, you guys work on cars, or like, how about, like, you know, let them talk about that and then engage in whatever it is that they're talking about. Like, people will open up to you, right? You'll end up having really good conversations with them. And you're taking really good notes on all of that so that when you are doing your follow-ups, this is more natural, right? You're kind of building this friendship where you're almost excited to talk to the person again. You get a little bit invested in what's happening. And then the more you start doing that, you know, it's not so, you know, I'm just calling these people or getting all these no's. We're going to hear a lot of no's before you hear the yeses, right? And it's being okay with that process. And then sometimes you got to look on the bright side, right? If we're calling our leads today, let's say I have 100 people to call and no one answered, I'll be like, yes, no one answered. That just like totally, you know, that's less work for me to do. I finished my list. It's all good to go, right? Or we could look at it as like, oh man, no one answered. So sometimes it's our perspective on how we're looking at things, but time blocking yourself and trying to hold yourself accountable for that. You know, Monday, you know, throughout the week for sure. Some of us do our calls on, like, I know a lot of people do calls on Saturdays, things like that. Your new lead should always be called, you know, within 24 hours. So Sundays is a sketchy one for some people, right? They don't want to call people on Sundays. But if they did register 100%, we want to be there. We want to prevent them from going elsewhere and registering, right? So we want to help facilitate that search as soon as possible. Otherwise, some people just go all over the internet, signing up everywhere looking for stuff. So we want to try to prevent that from happening. But time blocking yourself. So whether it's like, you know, this week I'm going to call in the mornings and I'm going to block my calendar from this time to this time, or in the afternoons or in the evenings as well. Or maybe every day you just have a different time period that you've blocked off, but it's maintaining and you know, designating your time specifically for that. If something is trying to fall in that time block, it's try to work around it, right? It's kind of like, I have to go to this. If you had a dentist appointment, you have to go to this dentist appointment. I have to call my leads. So it's just being accountable for yourself. You could also find an accountability partner, so somebody else that is also doing leads and things like that, that you can help motivate each other through your successes or what you're doing. So sometimes when we just talk to other people or doing things, or sometimes it's just one great conversation really gets us in the mood to keep going. So just remember that that's going to help you, but it's just once, if you're behind in your system, yes, it's going to be overwhelming when you open it, right? And that's what we want to try to prevent from ever happening, that we open it up and think, oh my gosh, where do I even begin? Because if we have a systematic approach to it, you're going to find it a lot easier on a day-to-day basis, and actually a lot less work on a day-to-day basis. But if we're playing catch up in here, for the first 2 to 4 weeks, it'll be heavy. It'll be heavy just because you're playing catch up. But if you're calling in here every day, you're going to get yourself organized. People are going to go into the right categories. Again, some of them we won't have to call for 3 months, some maybe 6 months, things like that. So naturally your day-to-day workload does start to decrease. You can also take leads that aren't active. Let's say they're not in your category, like even they're older leads, you know, send them a mass text message. You know, do it 100. If I'm doing any kind of mass text, I kind of do it at 100 at a time to test text, see what the response rate is. It has, like, you know, what time of day you're sending it, the response rate of it. And really the ones that aren't active, you know, hey, Crystal, just touching base with you. Hope you had a fantastic holiday season. Just curious if you guys have any plans or goals to make any, you know, real estate decisions in 2024. Question mark. right? And you can send it out to, 100 people at a time and just wait to see the responses, because sometimes it is process of elimination. Some people may have already moved, they completely put it on hold, but now they completely put it on hold. We can now say, okay, well, now I don't need to follow up with this person until the next quarter, right? So it all helps you out, and you can do it in different methods. But definitely the ones that we've had conversations with after the holidays, we kind of know they're warm, things like that. We definitely want to be trying to have phone conversations with those individuals in here. And I think that was, we do not have, so having a campaign for past clients to re-engage or set them up in the system. There is no such campaign in there for that. That's something that would have to be created on your part, as well as, what you want to be saying to these people. Like, hey, I've got a new system that's going to do this, right? Feel free, or I've set you up so that you can go and browse listings. If you have access to sold listings, that's the best way to introduce your clients or past clients to this system, right? Set them up to receive those listings in their neighborhood. So even if you don't have sold listings, you can do that. Hey, I've got this new site, and what I wanted to do for you, because everyone seems to be curious about the market and everything these days. I set you up to receive listings as they come available in your neighborhood. So the ones that are most likely to impact the value of your home. So you can always see as soon as they get listed what the asking is. You can see what the inside looks like, and so on. And of course, if you do have access to sold, you could also let them know that, hey, or maybe, whether you do both or one or the other. But I've also set you up to receive sold listings as well. So as soon as any of those homes you see on the market sell, you're going to get an email letting you know exactly what that home sold for. If you guys don't have access to the system in here with sold, you can, most boards allow you to do that, or through your matrix system. I'm pretty sure, like, you can't set somebody up on a trip. This is where it would be more manual, where you're going in and you might have it and you set it and you send it, okay, I'll send you a report every month, the sold activity in your neighborhood. You can kind of look at what's going on, right? Because then they start to expect it coming from you as well. So you start acting as their realtor again. Right? And sometimes you can do that with prospects as well, right? You start acting as their realtor, even though we're not in an agreement. They own a home, they will move at some point. So you're now giving them something of value in the system. So hopefully that helps some of you guys out. But log your calls is the biggest one. Logging all your calls, whether you talk to them or you don't talk to them. Detailed notes. We are in the business of note taking, and so most of your leads you're calling are not in the business of note taking. So the more detailed your notes are, the more powerful your follow-ups are going to be. Because people, when we're referring back to a past conversation, it could be like, oh, hey, something, maybe their daughter had a birthday party or something happened, like whatever it is that you learned about this person, you're now referring back to them in the conversation. Hey, last time you spoke, the person's just going to think that you remembered that. They're not in the note-taking business, so they're not going to think that, oh, she just got notes, she remembers all this. They're just like, they're kind of caught off. Oh, like, wow, she actually remembered. She remembers me. Like, remember having that conversation. So they do go a far way. And again, each conversation that we're having is a stepping stone, right? We're just building on that. And the more we're doing that, we're building trust, we're building that relationship. And in many cases, we're gaining referrals, because those people start to see that you're working, you're dedicated to them, even though they're not even yet a client. And for many, that's a big value, right? You can also ask people as well, what can I be doing for you right now? Or is there anything I can do to help earn your business? Right? So that's a question that you can always ask that catches people up off guard. Because not very often when we ask somebody, what do I have to do in order for you to hire me? Right? So let me know what it is. What is it that you need? And some people don't even know, because they've never been asked that question. They don't know what they're looking for. But they will know exactly what they're not looking for as soon as it happens, right? So, but hopefully that helps you guys out in here with respect to that. Was there any questions surrounding filters? Again, use your primary ones to start. Again, if you need to expand on your system just based on what you're doing, you can always reach out to our support team and get you in for a session. We are most likely booking into the new year right now, just as a heads up. But it's kind of taking a look and taking it in bite sizes, right? So take it in bite sizes. Don't try to tackle it all, but you'll slowly progress your way through here. And again, once you're organized in here, you'll have no problem emptying. I call these all buckets on a daily basis. Doesn't matter what your lead count is, because you have a method to your madness that's going on. There's strategy behind all of it. Yeah, you're welcome, Savannah. Awesome. Well, if we don't have any additional questions, I'm going to jump off. Of course, we will not be having a session next week for obvious reasons. We are back on, so it won't be till the second week. So the 8th of January will be our next session in here. So, just enough time for you guys to get back into the swing of things a bit and start kind of focusing back, and hopefully, like, we're going to be running in January and getting things going, and hopefully the market starts to pick up and things get a little bit easier for many of you in markets that are a little bit tight right now. So, but thank you all for being on here. Again, if you do have any questions that pop up, I'm always reachable. You can always send me an email. There are tutorials galore that I can easily send to you if need be. Sometimes I do jump into your system, put a video together if it's something that's kind of a little bit outside of a standard tutorial. But yep, always reach out if you need that extra assistance. And you can always reach out if you have a trainer. You can reach out to them directly. You can also just reach out to support, and we'll get you all situated. But I hope you all have a very fantastic holiday season, and we'll see and talk to you all in the new year.